Good evening, and welcome to Horror Historian. My name is Amanda, and tonight we'll be discussing the Hungarian horror film Taxidermia. I went into this movie completely blind. I didn't know anything about it. I'm glad that I did, but it is disturbing, but not like the worst. The director is Georgi Alfi. He is most known for this movie, Huckle and Freefall. He wrote this along with Sophia Rutke. She is best known for Freefall, His Master's Voice, and I Am Not Your Friend. The stars are Ksaba Zen, Gergely Truksani, and Piroska Molnar. Suzanne is most known for In the Line of Fire, Robinson in Heavily Shift. He has sadly passed away. Truksani is most known for Infinity Pool, The Grandson, and Epilogue. And Molnar is most known for The Notebook, The Tragedy of Man, and a lot of theater. Trigger warning for ableism, body horror, animal abuse, necrophilia, and bestiality. The movie opens with a man named Vendel repeatedly playing with fire that he creates with a lighter. He has a cleft lip and he is repeatedly burning himself in an attempt to keep warm, and also he's weird. He is in a Hungarian outpost and he is a member of the military. This is the only heat that he can find in his small shack that is unheated. Life here is grim, and Vendel has managed to annoy the lieutenant named Kalman, a man whose control over the outpost is certain. He has a bad feeling about Vendel and tends to watch him pretty closely. This is proven in our first encounter between the two, when Kalman catches Vendel washing up naked in the early morning. A trough plays an oddly significant role in each one of these stories, starting from the grandfather. This trough is used for chores, livestock, and personal hygiene. Kalman takes the time to interrogate Vendel about his daily tasks on this day, from morning to night, wanting every detail. One of Vendel's assignments is to heat water for the trough so that the women in the outpost can bathe, a task that becomes disturbingly charged on his part. One of the women is Kalman's wife, a heavier woman who often bathes with another younger woman. I'm not really sure what the relation is, but they're just keeping each other company. Kalman warns Vendel that under no circumstance should he ever peek in on what is going when those women are about to wash up. But he doesn't really listen to Kalman. He has a sexual obsession to the point that he is using a hole in the freezing shed to rut against while watching them have a snowball fight. There's nothing sexy about that, but he is like creep. Thankfully, a chicken bites him for his trouble, and he didn't learn a single thing about not sticking things in a random hole. A shift occurs when a pig is brought in after it had been slaughtered, possibly some of the freshest meat they've had in a long time. The men gather for butchering and prep and leave it in the shed for overnight so they can eat it in the following days. It all seems harmless, but you kind of feel like something bad's gonna happen. There are brief references throughout this part of the movie to The Little Match Girl, a haunting tragic tale about poverty and suffering in the cold. A story that is very familiar with Vendel, given his own constant struggle against the cold out there. On the night the pig is slaughtered, the narrative takes a much darker turn. Vendel sleeps with the lieutenant's wife in his shack, taking her on the trough. It's a lot of lust and desperation, but it turns out into something altogether surreal. Her image starts to turn into the figure of the slaughtered pig, and it becomes clear that he is having intercourse with the dead pig. So that's necrophilia and bestiality all in one act, and that's just the first person. But it's more than that because it wasn't entirely fantasy. At some point in the time that they had been in the outpost, he did have sex with the lieutenant's wife. So was reliving his memories while doing all that. When morning comes, he is discovered passed out on top of the dead pig. He is found by Lieutenant Coleman, who immediately takes out a gun and shoots him. It's not bad enough that he had desecrated the meat so that no one could enjoy the only fresh meat that they'd had in quite some time. It's just that he's irredeemably vile. I can't really fault that man for that knee-jerk reaction. I wish it ended there, but it doesn't. Not long after that death, Kalman's wife gives birth to a baby boy, a child who, disturbingly, is born with a curly little pigtail. Without hesitation, Kalman uses a cleaver to sever the tail, but it leaves a little bit of a stump into his adulthood. It's just a reminder who his biological father is, not that this seems to ever be addressed with him. Following the collapse of the USSR, Hungary was having kind of a hard time making a national identity for itself and kind of like carving a place for itself in the world as itself. Desperate to not fade into anonymity, there are competitions between all of the Soviet states. One unexpected area that the Hungarians are attempting to stake their claim in is competitive eating. If you are imagining the carnival like enthusiasm of Joey Chestnut and his hot dogs, that is so not the case. This is a far cry from that kind of food. They are gorging themselves on like revolting dishes and trying to eat as much of it as they can by weight. It's a lot of soups and gelatin. It's so gross. None of this looks pleasant. Balatoni has grown into adulthood, and this is the singular talent that he works on. By the time that we catch up to him, he is a notable competitor among the circuit and has gained a reputation. Among the three main characters, he's the one that we get to know the most. Unlike his father, Balatoni is not a sexual deviant. His obsession is entirely about competitive eating and making a name for himself in that sport. At competitions, his mother is his loudest supporter, and she has a lot of pride in him. His adoptive father is most certainly there with her at every go, and Balatoni falters a bit in the competition that we meet him during, narrowly losing the last round. By the way, another horrifying thing, these competitions go in rounds, so every time the round finishes, they go to the back, surround a trough to vomit. It purges their stomach so that they can get ready for the next round. I'll admit, I had to kind of scoot through those scenes. Vomit just really grosses me out, so I'm not able to watch that sequence without starting to feel a little bit sick myself. So I'll give them credit. That was very good and very gross. In the next round, disaster strikes as Balatoni's jaw locks up in the middle of the competition, and he's unable to continue. The moment is a difficult one as his body betrays him in honestly a way I wasn't expecting. He's humiliated in his defeat, but he is unwilling to give up competition forever. This man is doggedly pursuing some kind of recognition. Once he is cleared by doctors, he dives back into training with a renewed obsession. His coach, who has always been working with him since literal childhood, is by his side. He once had young boys in his barn shoveling soup into their mouths under strict orders. Even then, Balatoni stood out among the group. He was an eating prodigy, and if competitive eating is ever considered a real sport, he'd be considered one of the greats. His ambition bleeds out into every aspect of his life. When he elopes, it's with a fellow competitive eater. He has subtle dreams of founding a dynasty of competitive eaters, then making a name in the developing sport. So even if he failed to be around for the sport to be officially recognized, then maybe his kids could bring him that legacy. Balatoni never stops training, pushing himself to be the best of the best. During a celebratory banquet aboard a boat, marking the anniversary of, honestly, I don't really remember, but either way, they are there to eat. His wife collapses, and it's rough. She collapses and goes into labor, and I wonder if the guests were a little relieved that that ended. None of them really looked as though they were big fans of the competitive eating that they were doing. And the moment the Balatoni lays his eyes on his infant son, he is disappointed. The child is frail and sickly from the moment he enters the world. It is a quiet but devastating moment for him, the crushing realization that his dreams of legacy is probably dead. I will name him Lajoska, and he will be fragile from the very beginning. Considering how unwell his mother seemed to be throughout her entire pregnancy, it's not really that surprising that he struggles. Time skips forward, and there's no mention of what happened to his mother. It's easy to assume Balatoni's wife had passed away at some point, but it's downright shocking that he is still alive. When we meet Lajoska as an adult, his father is an immovable presence in his life, literally and figuratively. Lajoska has carved out a life as best as he can. He works as a taxidermist with enough success to maintain and open a shop in town. But his father is in an apartment, dragging him down. He no longer can competitively eat, but Balatoni has never stopped eating the soup that he went to fame for. He is confined to a single room so heavy that he can't do much more than sit on his sofa, but yet he is alive. His days are spent gorging himself in front of television, which is endless echo of his competing years. It's very clear that he does not care about his son, but he does care about the cats that are kept caged away from him. It probably has a lot to do with the concern of him crushing them, but it also doesn't help that they are borderline feral. The only thing that he has Lajoska feed the cats is butter, feeling as though that's the best way to get them to bulk up. The cats are cared for by Lajoska, who is the only person to go in and out. Balatoni cannot forgive his son for not being able to continue the legacy. The quiet bitterness weighs heavily on Lajoska, and one night he just leaves the room, leaving his father alone. There's only so much abuse you can take, and he finally realizes that there's a door and that only one of them could leave. Despite his father's obsession with gaining weight, Lajoska takes an opposite approach. He spends a fair amount of time at the gym, not trying to get a hulking figure, but it's more of a functional strength. He isn't a bodybuilder, but you can tell he can throw around a dead animal if he needs to. This workout is filmed in more than a sexual way to show Lajoska doing a workout. There's like it's a sexual release. It's I don't know how else to describe it. When he has calmed down and returns home, the room has a heavy silence. His father has passed away, likely from a heart attack, but it's worse than that. Lajoska must have left the cage open enough that the cats have managed to break free. They have been starving for meat and they finally got it. Most of it is based on like a hole that they have munched through on his stomach, and the cats are in the bathroom hissing at him. Here's the thing. There's no practical reason for what happens next. But he decides that he's going to euthanize the three cats that had fed on his father and incorporate them into the last piece of art in his life. He never says that he's an artist or expresses a desire to be the greatest artist in the world. He simply makes a final, macabre, two-piece art series. Then comes the film's most disturbing pivot. Lajoska escalates his taxidermy to the ultimate expression himself. He drugs himself to the point where he can do what he wants to do, um, and he sets up a heart and lung machine so that while he removes his organs, he will not die. And he does absolutely empty out his entire torso cavity and he preserves himself. He pulls a lever after sewing himself up, and his own head is severed. The next day, a man enters the workshop. It is a client that has come to pick up his bizarre commission. It is a fetus inside of, I want to say it's a paperweight. I'm also going to say it's probably not going in his work office. Despite his father's relentless contempt for his career choice and lack of ability, Lajoska ultimately surpasses every man in his paternal line. And hey, his dad's definitely not going to be forgotten anytime soon. The film reveals that in a full circle moment, the interview that we are hearing snippets of at the very beginning fully reveals everything. It is two people discussing the final two pieces of art, one that included not only his body, but his father's. His father's body remains on the exact same chair he lived, preserved in all its excess. The parts that the cats devoured have been patched up with their pelts, a very harsh thing to do, as I previously stated. On the other side of the exhibit hall is Lajoska, displayed a bit like a disturbing Greek statue, where the head didn't accidentally get knocked off in transport, but with intention. His torso bears the jagged, closed incision of where he had done most of his own taxidermy work. Oh my god, that scene was so gross. He is naked, and his pose evokes classical sculpture. What's disturbing is more than just the fact that Lajoska did all of this. It's just that everyone that sees the bodies treats it like high art. They dissect the themes as if that isn't just a really horrifying thing to be looking at. Like these were people, and this is so much self destruction at the end of the day. So, is this a good movie? That's kind of hard for me to answer. It's definitely provocative, disturbing, and visually memorable. It explores generational rot through these three men, each broken in their own unique, distinct way. There's no like neat overlap of them, just three manifestations of obsession and loneliness. Visually, this movie is not for the faint of heart or stomach. In scenes with relentless vomit, the film feels a bit like a dare, but for those willing to endure discomfort, it offers an unsettling look at identity and legacy. I kind of wish I had a little bit more information going into this movie. Like I said, I saw the image, thought it sounded kind of cool. Someone also brought it up, so I dove in. This movie definitely has a lot to say. It does a very good job at getting certain themes over, and it's also wild to say this about a movie I'm definitely labeling this as disturbed, but some of these themes are they're just really well shot. At times, the shot do such a good job at making something even more disgusting. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Amanda. This has been Horror Historian. Would I survive? My family is not this messed up. A rare win.